Hi, and thanks for joining in on this video. Welcome. I'm calling this video Mass Shootings, a Shotgun, a Talking Serpent, and the Temptation of Lady Galadriel. This is the fifth in a series of videos that I've put together called Beginnings, and we're looking at the opening chapters of the Bible, which are incredibly rich and take some work to pull out what's all there. And I hope that these videos are a great help to you. If you haven't seen the first four, please take a look when you get a chance. But this one will stand on its own whether you've seen the other four or not. So in the first four, we did look at the first two stories of the creation that appear on, so to speak, page 1 and 2 of the Bible, chapters 1 and 2 of Genesis, the first part of the Bible. And the picture that emerges there is just a fantastic picture of our home, the world, God's creation being a welcoming place for us, the place where God has called us to thrive, to do well, to fill the earth with our families, our communities, our towns, our tribes, our cities, our places of learning and industry and arts and all the rest of what makes human life so wonderful to live when you experience those things. So all those things are presented in Genesis 1 and 2 as coming from God, blessings from Him, and the freedom for us to begin to do all these terrific things. There's even a note of celebration at the end of both creation accounts. In the first one, God looks over everything He's made and He celebrates. He takes time to look it all over. And at the end of the second creation account, it's the first man, Adam, who ends up celebrating because finally he finds a suitable companion for him, someone who is equal to him, and is going to be his partner. So he breaks out into what I sometimes quip, what I sometimes call the first love song. So there's a celebration both on the part of humans and on the part of God in the first creation accounts. However, life is not all fantastic. Here in Nova Scotia, about a week ago, we had a terrible mass shooting. Over 20 victims. One of them a police officer. The shooter himself killed by the police. And whether it's that or whether it's other things that we pay attention to now and then, whether it's in the news, whether it's our own deaths, whether it's the COVID pandemic, which is going on right now as I'm recording, there is darkness in our world. There is evil. So maybe it's appropriate that the Bible stories not go on for too long without a recognition that there is evil. And that's what happens in chapter 3 of Genesis, which is what we're going to be looking at right now. I forget where I read it or saw it, but it's about someone who's instructing young writers about their craft. And the instructor says to them, whatever element you introduce into your story, you've got to make sure the element is used. So if you, in chapter 2 of your story, say that there is a shotgun hanging over the fireplace mantle, then by the time you get to the end of your story, that shotgun had better be used. Well, there's a shotgun in Genesis 1 and 2. And the shotgun is this. It's where God plants a tree in the Garden of Eden, and He says to the first people, you can enjoy everything in the garden, just don't eat from that one tree. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So I think that tree uh, is a representation of the knowledge of God. Sometimes you find this in the Bible where two extremes are named, and what's actually meant is the two extremes and everything in between. So here you have good and evil, two extremes, and what's also meant is everything in between. So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil would, so to speak, impart to somebody the knowledge of everything. And that kind of knowledge appropriately belongs to God. Well, only God is capable of handling it or having that sort of knowledge anyway, because your and my knowledge is finite no matter how much education we receive. Our knowledge is always finite, and the task of deciding what is good and evil, well, that is a frightening responsibility. And there are people, who aspire to this kind of godlike knowledge. There are people who are quite ready to decide what is truth and what is falsehood, what is good, what is evil, who is good and who is evil, who should live, who should die, who should be dragged to a torture chamber, who should be allowed to remain free on the streets. There are such people, and of course we read about them now and then. But so that kind of knowledge, when we think we have it, can get us into a lot of trouble. So anyway, that's the shotgun that's hanging over the mantelpiece. That tree is there, and God's commanded the first people not to try to aspire to be like God. I think that tree is a symbolic element. Represents the knowledge that appropriately only God can have and belongs to Him. So it's there. So I'm going to read now a few lines from chapter 3. The serpent was clever, more clever than any wild animal God had made. He spoke to the woman. Do I understand that God told you not to eat from any tree in the garden? The woman said to the serpent, Not at all. We can eat from the trees in the garden. It's only about the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, Don't eat from it, don't even touch it, or you will die. The serpent told the woman, You won't die. God knows that the moment you eat from that tree, you'll see what's really going on. And you'll be just like God, knowing everything, ranging all the way from good to evil. When the woman saw that the tree looked like good eating and realized what she would get out of it, she'd know everything. She took and ate the fruit and then gave some to her husband, and he ate. And immediately the two of them did see what's really going on, saw themselves naked. They sewed fig leaves together as makeshift cloths for themselves. So in this particular story, there is what some people call the anatomy of evil is revealed for us. And this is how it goes. First, there is the talking snake. Now, we don't know where he's been up till now. He's maybe been roaming around God's creation, causing all kinds of mischief. We don't know. He just appears in the story and begins to talk to the woman. So what he says to the woman is amounts to, first of all, questioning God. Did God really say? Well, and then they sort that out. And then he undermines God's command not to eat from the tree, and not only undermines the command, but also undermines God's reputation. He says to the woman, the reason that God doesn't want you eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is because He's stingy with His powers. He's not willing to share those powers with you. So, by the way, never mind that God had blessed and shared and opened doors for all kinds of things for human beings in the earlier chapters. But anyway, this serpent is not up to any good. He uses his cleverness to undermine what God is trying to do and to create mistrust. By the way, later in the Bible, the source of evil is personified as Satan, and the word Satan means accuser. So here we have a talking serpent accusing God cleverly, not in so many words, but just raising the doubt that God is not to be trusted. He was really not interested in your well-being, woman and man. He's at least as interested in preserving his own turf and making sure that you don't get in on it. So there's that dimension to evil, the undermining of God, whatever you may know of him, whatever we may know of God. So undermining God. Secondly, in the anatomy of evil, sometimes evil can look really good, right? So the fruit of the tree looked good for eating. I work with youth who are in custody. So some are there for theft, some are there for acts of violence, occasionally a killing. Some have manufactured drugs and sold them and that kind of thing. And evil can look enticing as you're thinking about it. Before you actually eat the tree and understand the consequences, but eat the fruit and understand the consequences. But so this is what happens. So the youth that I work with, they may think, oh, if I steal these things, I'll have all this free stuff. Or if I can just make some meth somewhere and sell it quickly, I'll have a lot of money suddenly. If I commit this act of violence against someone, I'll feel a lot better and I'll have gotten back at him or her and their gang or their family. And I will have told people that I don't get pushed around. And this kind of stuff looks very enticing, but the minute you've completed the act, you find yourself disoriented and oftentimes shattered. When I was a kid, it was not a very happy childhood. There were a lot of anger and things going on in my own mind, and I fell into some habits of thinking and behaving, and which were not good. And one time I vandalized a teacher's car. Well, this all seemed, very exciting and assertive and that kind of thing. And even the act of doing it, there was an adrenaline and that kind of thing. But once it's all over, I just felt terrible and ashamed, disoriented, causing my family a lot of stress and shame and bring a lot of disruption to the school community and to my church also, where there were some really great people who graciously, talked with me and helped me. So, Eve is presented with all this stuff, and there's the story that Tolkien tells in The Lord of the Rings about Lady Galadriel, who is tempted when Frodo offers her the Ring of Power, and she considers it, and she realizes that she would take it in order to do good and to have all these godlike powers, but in the end it would not work because she's not capable of wielding godlike powers with enough consistency and integrity to really make good consistently happen. Evil would happen. And so Lady Galadriel is a bit like Eve, and Lady Galadriel, if you've read the books or seen the movie, she passes the test. Eve, she does not. So I think that's about all we can cover right now. There's a lot more to the chapter. We've only looked at 1/3 of it. I think we can cover the rest of it in the next video. So this one ends very darkly, this particular section, but at the end of the chapter, there will be hope, more than a glimmer. There will be some real hope. Nevertheless, the darkness has been introduced into our story, and maybe this is also a bit of an illustration of how we experience our own lives. So I hope that's been helpful, and I will see you next time. Please subscribe. It helps me in the beginning of my YouTube life to have those subscriptions build, and will help the word get out there a little more. So thanks so much, and be well, and I will see you next time.